Anyways, moving right along, we had some huge news drop Friday night, which gave us a little something more to talk about this week. Matthew Tkachuk, he had previously let the Calgary Flames know that he would not plan on signing there long term. So Friday night, now huge blockbuster. Calgary actually signed him and then traded him to Florida for forward Jonathan Huberdeau, defenseman Mackenzie Weegar, forward prospect Cole Schwint, and a first-round pick in 2025. That's lottery protected. The Panthers also got a fourth-round pick in 2025. Tkachuk's deal is an 8-year, $76 million deal. Comes out to $9.5 million average annual value. And this is the first sign and trade in NHL history, Biz, because at first it was listed as signed by Florida, but we checked it today, and no, it's actually Calgary signed him to get that 8th year and then traded him, and that's probably why they paid such a bounty. But first off, Whit, I'll go to you first. Did Florida pay too much for Matthew Tkachuk here?
I love Matthew Tkachuk, and that signing, the number he's making is totally reasonable for how young he is. He is truly a little bit of a like unicorn might be a little exaggeration. I think that's maybe what Bill Zito called him, a generational talent. Unicorn in the fact that he's so angry and so mean while also producing at such a crazy high level. So that at 9.5 is an unbelievable deal. I still am so confused on what was given up. It's hard to say that too because of how big of a fan of Tkachuk I am. I thought the deal for Huberdeau made sense, or Huberdeau in a first rounder. You throw in Weegar and you throw in this prospect who, from all accounts I've heard, could be a very good third line center in the NHL. And it's like, is Bill Zito smoking the craziest Native American marijuana that Grinelli and RA smoked in Buffalo? This guy's fucking out to lunch, no? Have you seen what this guy's traded away? He traded away. We'll have to get the tweet. Grinelli, pull it up. I don't get the fact that you have to give up that much. And now, yes, there is a chance, and they probably decided we don't want to sign Huberdeau. He's probably going to look to get exactly what Tkachuk got. And they're looking at it as, all right, well, we got worked in the second round. We need a guy who's probably a little more playoff type angry. I can't put a sentence together right now. A little bit more grit. So I understand that. Well, the worst part of Florida's teams, their defense, they just lost their second best defenseman. Now, understandably, they probably weren't going to be able to re-sign Weegar, but it's like you got swept in the second round. You didn't sniff beating Tampa at all, and your team, in my mind, is now worse. No?
Wait, I got that tweet here. It's from Leafs Need God. It's from Leafs Need God. There needs to be a documentary on how Bill Zito transformed the Florida Panthers into a contender, then blew it in 5 months. 3 first-round picks, Huberdeau, Weegar, 2 prospects, a third-rounder, a fourth-rounder, 4, 2 months of Claude Giroux, 2 months of Ben Sherratt, and Matthew Tkachuk.
Not to mention, when they say 2 prospects, one of them's Owen Tippett, who was a first-rounder. So that's 4 first-rounders. I do not understand. I swear to God, poor memes, by the way. We had the party Friday night. This news broke. The whole place is all hockey nuts. Everyone's like, what the fuck? You see this trade? Memes is like, oh, fuck. I got to get on social, man. I got to write some stuff and tweets about this
daily. It's daily.
But it's just like you bring in such an impactful player, and it's a great signing. It's just what you gave up for him is truly confusing to me. And even if Calgary isn't able to re-sign Huberdeau or Weegar, do you know what they're going to get for them at the deadline?
Yeah, that's I'll focus
Calgary,
more.
Great job.
I think Tree Living, one of the most underrated GMs in the National Hockey League, was put in a very difficult situation when he found out 2 of his best players aren't coming back next year. One he lost to free agency, of course, and Johnny Gaudreau, and then I don't know if this was brewing up as far as a thought from Tkachuk as soon as they lost Gaudreau, which amplified his
had to have something to do with it big time.
And the fact that, like, guys, if you're an American player and you're playing in Canada to come back and play home, where, I mean, you saw it from, you're hearing Dubois now, right? Dubois, not only did he want to go back to Canada, but he wants to go back to Montreal where he's from. So it was a miraculous trade. I just don't understand where all of a sudden Tree Living had all this leverage. The one extra
none. That was the craziest thing.
The one extra year, my fucking family phone's going off. Can you guys answer the phone, please?
It's a guy named Paul calling for our sister.
Mom. But to get all that in return without having any leverage, where the only explanation I would have for it is maybe St. Louis or another team was offering quite a bit more, where Zito felt the pressure where he needed to up the ante. You just mentioned it. On top of getting Huberdeau and Weegar back at the prices that you got him for this year, on top of getting the first rounder, I don't see Calgary being that much worse overall now than they were last year, which is a huge bonus, right? Because you get Huberdeau, Johnny Gaudreau, known as one of the best passers in the league. So is Huberdeau. He's up there, right? As far as defense, when they lost Tanev in playoffs, you saw how much that hurt him. Johnny came in and came on the podcast and talked about it. So now they address by getting another defender who can help out also offensively, special teams. He's a good PP guy. I want to see it over 40 points last year. So how Tree Living was able to carve this out. And I think that Matthew Tkachuk mentioned it, where he was like, you know what? I know that there's going to be people who aren't happy, but at least I was kind enough to kind of give them the heads up and also provide some type of leverage where they could get something in return. I don't know if that was a shot at Johnny or just him speaking his own mind about his situation. But ultimately, if you're a Calgary fan, you have to be happy with what he provided your organization and with what position he gave them in order to get a return to continue this relevancy, and a team with what they have could end up making a run. And I could see them going to the conference finals. Do I see them as a cup contender by losing a guy with so much grit and toughness? And with going back the other way for Florida, maybe part of that desperation was they weren't going to be able to afford to pay Marchment, where up front, they don't really have anybody who has that sandpaper finish. They do have Gudas on the back end, I believe, for one more year, who can help out in that regard. But to have a guy like Tkachuk, obviously Bill Zito saw that as being tremendously valuable and something that they really, really lacked last year in playoffs, and why they weren't able to come even near sniffing what Tampa Bay was throwing at them. So,
well, Ekblad, who prior to his injury was a legitimate Norris Trophy candidate and having the best year of his career. Well, he's had a tough time staying healthy his career. And when he was out, who picked up the entire load? It was Mackenzie Weegar. And it's like, I completely understand wanting to add a guy like Tkachuk. Every team in the league wants a guy like that. But the Panthers, you cannot tell me they're a better team today. And Huberdeau and Tkachuk, ironically, it's the second time in league history 200-point scorers have been traded for one another. The other time was Wayne Gretzky and Jimmy Carson. So it's like, that's why this deal was so shocking. It really was one of those NBA style deals where you're like, what the fuck just happened? But I guess like you're going to have to see how the season plays out. But if I'm a Calgary fan and I look at Matthew Tkachuk and what he gave as a member of the Flames, and also the video he made to say goodbye and what you got in return, I have no ill will towards him. That guy played his balls off and was willing to legitimately do anything it took to win constantly. And you got an enormous return, and he didn't want to be there. Some people take that personally. I don't. It's just a crazy trade that to me still makes no sense. And if they lose both of them and the Flames can't sign Huberdeau or Weegar, we'll see what they get in return around the deadline. But I don't even know if they'll be able to trade him at the deadline if they have a really good team. It's like, that's going to be the question for Trey leaving.
So you're essentially finding yourself in another Columbus type situation, right? Where they're getting a little bit hosed for being a Canadian market team, where you got to be very smart about how you lock guys in. Now, I think that you would imagine in Florida, Huberdeau would have commanded probably the same amount in which they ended up giving Tkachuk. There would have been no way with the way they're paying out in salary and the salary cap that they would have been able to keep Weegar, but nonetheless could have used them at the deadline to acquire more assets in a different regard. So I'm not going to rip on Zito yet, because I want to see that the way this all transpires and the way that it plays out. I don't know what other defensemen they have in the pipeline that can step up and maybe fill in that role that is going to be missed by Weegar.
Yeah, maybe we don't know about a young stud. Fair enough.
But but at this point right now, it just seems like a severe overpayment in a situation where Calgary really had no leverage.
The other thing too, of Florida, they were probably unlikely to sign both of these guys, so they probably figured, man, if we're not going to have them both, might as well, get rid of one right now. Get something for it,
R.A. Witt, like it just so happens it's the two guys who probably struggled the most mightily, not only like in playoffs, but more so in that Tampa series. Like Weegar made a couple of bonehead plays defensively. Still think he's an incredible player, and Huberdeau in the power play were absolutely rubbish. He did not look like himself. That's why I even go back to the first round. Like they didn't have a power play goal till game 4 of the second round, or maybe a little bit more before that. Do you think that plays as a major factor of him not thinking these guys can play playoff hockey?
Possibly. I mean, when you look at a team have a season that they did in the regular season, a true legendary regular season where you win the President's Trophy only to be completely dusted in the second round. You look at all aspects, you watch the tape on all 4 games, and you see what truly let us down. Maybe they decided it was kind of Weegar defensively and Huberdeau offensively. That's hard to say. But just looking at Calgary once again, they have Huberdeau and Weegar this season combined making less money than Matthew Tkachuk.
Good point. Also, I mean, Matthew did let them know. I mean, he was upfront and honest with Calgary. Like, look, great time, but look, I'm not going to re-up here. So they took the initiative, and obviously the Hurricanes and Blues with other teams in the mix. And Matty said, quote, playing at home, I'm sure every hometown kid will say it's special for you, but it's more special for the people that got you here, which I thought was a pretty interesting quote. Like, similar with Johnny. It's like, what Johnny ended up in Columbus. Like, yeah, it's great. Everybody wants you at home, but it's the whole, hassle of everybody bugging you every game for tickets and this, that, the other thing. So I thought that was pretty interesting. What's his name? The Athletic reported that St. Louis had offered, a proposal included Tarasenko, Scandella, and a high draft pick. The team officially declined comment. Buddy Strick said that Tarasenko was never approached about waiving his clause, but of course, you probably talk about this stuff before you actually ask guys to waive. So